Welcome to Fierce, Fun, Feminine, and Other F Words. I'm Christine Elizabeth, and I help women unstuck themselves. Today, we are talking about being married to a narcissist. Being married for 23 years, having 2 adult children now, she is finally divorced of this abusive marriage. Our guest's name is Elizabeth, and that is the extent of what we're going to share, because if you don't know, narcissists have a revenge side. And so in order to protect her and keep her safe, she is sharing bare minimum as far as details and location, and just explaining her story and what it's like to be married to a narcissist. If you have a happy marriage, this is going to make you love your husband even more. If you're married to a narcissist or not sure, this episode is for you. Let's listen. Elizabeth, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Christine.
Yay.
I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, tell me a little bit about how you met your husband. I should say
I met him when I was in my mid-20s, and he swept me off my feet. He courted me, and I thought him only wanting to be with me meant he must really love me and want to just be with me. I didn't realize at the time that it's probably a red flag if they don't have a lot of friends and wanting to manipulate a lot of your time. But it was a true romance. I did fall in love. He was very worldly and cultured and had taken me to and traveled and shown me things that I'd never seen before. And it was very intoxicating. Yeah. And I did fall madly in love with him and want to marry him, and thought he would be a good provider and be that person that I could be with. But
so how old were you at the time?
I was probably 23, and we married when I was 26. And I can only say from looking back on it that he would say things to me like, I've never met anyone like you that is driven and knows what you want out of life. And I was pretty driven. And I realized later that we're not dumb. The narcissists pick us. We are chosen to take care of them and their needs and serve their purpose. They want a strong person.
Gotcha. So let me ask you a couple things. So sounds like you dated him for 3 years.
2.5 years.
Were there any red flags in those 2.5 years?
Looking back on it, I didn't really know they were red flags.
Sure.
I knew that I had to be accounted for at all times where I was. And I really didn't have freedom. And I always did things to please him, to make his life better and easier.
Okay, so now here we go. I'm going to just start getting into some of the details. And if it gets too personal, just say, I don't want to talk about this.
Okay.
Because
okay.
I know our listeners, first of all, they're going to want to know, how did you learn that you were married to a narcissist? What were some of the things that were happening inside your marriage? You just hit on a couple of them. So what was happening in your marriage? And then how did you figure out this is what you were dealing with? And after, and I'll remember this in case you forget, the third thing is, what did you do? Like, how did you manage it? Because I'm sure there was a lot of confusion at some point. So we'll start with, how were you treated? What made you realize something was wrong? And then how did you determine it was a narcissist?
I didn't really know that things were wrong. I think I was raised to believe that you support your husband. When your husband wants to move somewhere, you go where your husband goes. You make sure that dinner's on the table. You self-sacrifice so his life is better. You give, you take care of things so their life can be easier. And I think I over time became a subservient role. I wasn't an equal partner. He was the one that was the bigger person, and I was less than. It became pretty apparent that he was more powerful. He knew more. He was more business savvy. And I was there to support him so he could be what his big dream was of what he wanted to do and own his own company. And he didn't have time for the other things. But how it evolves is you end up, you can't do everything that they expect you to do. You are supporting them to make their life easier, and they keep adding to this list. And I realized that they isolate you. You know, all of a sudden, my friends weren't worthy of being my friends. They weren't good friends to me. I moved far away from my family. My mother wasn't allowed to come when I gave birth to my child. He had to be in control. He had to be the one making the decisions.
And were you raised to think that this is what marriage should look like?
I saw my mother pleasing my dad, and everything revolved around my dad.
Okay.
And I thought that's what it was like. But my mother believes, and I believe this as well, they both were equal partners. They both were intelligent. They were both the oldest children in the family. My husband was the oldest and I was the youngest. And I pleased to get along. I really didn't have a voice. My mother would say I was born and knew that I couldn't rock the boat. I tried to go on a trip, or I did go on a trip when I was early in our marriage with girlfriends to celebrate my 30th birthday. And I can't really tell you what happened, but I knew after that trip and after coming home that I could never do something like that again. That I wasn't really allowed to go on trips with girlfriends or go out with just girlfriends or have the support of just girlfriends.
Okay, back up the truck. Wait a minute. So now you don't want to go into this story, but you were made aware that this was never going to happen again. How did you feel when that happened? What was happening at this point inside your head? Were you starting to question what am I doing? Am I married? Is this what marriage is? Or did you start to think I need to get out? Where were you at this phase?
I thought that I better do this, that I better not fight this fight, that I wouldn't want him going out on boys' weekends without me in a weird way. So I thought it was okay. I just knew how miserable and how hurtful he made me feel. He shamed me or something. I can't describe it, but it's a feeling that you know you are in trouble and don't you ever do it again.
Was he verbally or emotionally abusive then? I mean, was he?
It was pretty emotionally abusive, but I didn't know at the time.
Okay. So
I just knew that I shouldn't do that again.
Okay.
Or my marriage would be in trouble.
At this point, did you have children?
I did not have children.
Okay. So it sounds like we're talking about you were raised to believe that you would serve your husband, but you thought it would be an equal partnership. But it was more of a patriarchal marriage where the man was the head of the house. And you were happy to be in that role as long as you felt like you were an equal. But in this situation, you were obviously not an equal. And you also struggled with people pleasing.
Yes.
At the time, your self-worth, it sounds like your self-worth was going to start to tank. I'm not sure.
Yes. It probably slowly deteriorates. They suck the life out of you where you really lose your sense of self.
Okay.
and your self-esteem and your self-worth.
What happened next? So the trip for your 30, when you're
Yeah, I learned then that that wasn't going to happen. Then when I got pregnant, we moved away 1,500 miles away, and he was gone at work every day. And it was very, very, very isolating. And it's not how life is supposed to be. You need support, you need family, you need friends. And I did make friends there, but I think there is when I realized too, if friends came over, I was the one carrying the load, and he didn't feel that he needed to contribute or help with anything. And other men would say, "Oh my God, can I help you? Can I help you? Can I do this?" Because it was obvious to them that I was rushing, trying to do everything while someone wasn't. But in my marriage, that's how it was. It was me racing and trying to serve him and make his life easier. And the support did not come back.
And did you ever ask him to help?
I did. And especially towards the end of my marriage, I would say, "I can't do this. I can't do all of this. I need help. I can't do this." And his response was always demeaning or always critical or disrespectful. "Oh, you just do it all, don't you?" Or if I asked for help, there was always a condition put upon. "I need your help," because a therapist had told me at one time, "You need to ask for help." And I'd say, "I need your help with this. I can't lift this. Would you move this? Or would you help me do this?" And it was like, "Well, you can clean the garage first, and then we'll talk about it."
Oh my. Okay.
There was always a condition. And I started noticing if the kids had friends over and we were barbecuing and I was in the kitchen and trying to grill and barbecue and set the table, and one of my daughter's friends that was a boy handed the grill utensils, took them from me and gave them to my husband and said, "You need to grill. You need to help her."
Oh my.
So
How old was this person?
he was probably a freshman in high school.
Wow. And what
I'm looking back on things, and when you're in it, you don't know. You don't know until things get very bad, and when you do get out of it, other people had noticed it and saw it.
But they never said anything?
They never really said anything.
Oh my.
I would go walking with a girlfriend, or I'd visit her, and then I'd say, oh my gosh, I have to go or I'm going to be in trouble." And she never understood what I meant, that I have to go or I'm going to be in trouble.
What does trouble mean? Was he physically abusive?
He wasn't physically abusive, but the trouble was his way of controlling me. And it just was, I can't explain it, and I wish I could. It's a feeling where you displeased them, and you're going to know that you did. And it is a distinct way of feeling that you have to almost dig yourself out of and prove your self-worth or that you're worthy of them to love you and apologize and beg almost, even though you did nothing wrong. They made you feel as if you did something wrong if you didn't abide by their rules.
So you walked on eggshells.
Yes.
Okay.
Can
you tell me a little bit? So you were serving him, you were doing everything. Give me an idea, and our listeners an idea of what that means. So you were at his service for meals, cooking, cleaning. I mean, did you run
the landscape, the outside, the inside? I didn't know this until much later, but withholding money. We did not share money. I trusted him because I was raised, you trust your husband. And my mother said it's not really a marriage because you're not commingling funds. It isn't so much about commingling funds or having separate accounts, but it's the transparency of it. He was not transparent with me. I never knew exactly how much money there was or what was going on with the money that he had. And when I wasn't working, I was given a very minimal amount to make it work for the month. I think it was $1,000 a month. And I was in charge of the food, the kids, the clothing for the kids, all the kids' activities, gas in the car if I wanted to drive, anything. It was almost impossible to make it work.
So you didn't have access to the bank account?
No. And this is when I wasn't working. I stayed home for 5 years. And he would say he gave me $1,000 a month. And when I said, I can't make it work, I don't know what to do. I need more money. And I'd feel so bad, like I had failed. But he was taking flying lessons to get his pilot's license that were $450 an hour. So he was the almighty, powerful business owner getting his pilot's license, not because he needed it, but because he wanted to tell people he had it.
Gotcha.
So it's thousands of dollars going into something that was not necessary. And then I was the person that didn't know how to handle money. I didn't know how to budget. I didn't know business.
So that's what
I
he's
didn't
telling
know.
you. It's not that
Yes.
he was telling you, you don't know what you're doing.
Yes. It was always,
Okay.
You don't know what you're doing. I know. Listen to me. I'm the one that knows. I have this experience. I am so much smarter than you.
You don't find out until further along in your story. It sounds like I'm pretty sure you're going to tell us when you've decided and realized you were married to a narcissist. But let's stop here. In case someone's listening, what are some things that people should pay attention to? What are some traits of narcissists that are like telltale signs? If she's experiencing certain things in her marriage, what would they be that she should look for?
Not being able to have your voice. Something you asked me if he was physically abusive, and I said no, but there was a time he was, because I asked, they know best.
Okay.
And you cannot voice an opinion or ask a question if they did something, because they will take it as an assault to their intelligence or their grandioseness or their entitlement or who they are, as a personal attack. And when he purchased his company, I said, and you saw an attorney reviewed the contract. And he took it as the biggest insult to his person of who he was, that he did choke my neck or my throat to silence it.
Oh, Betsy, I'm sorry.
And I think that was the day that I realized I can't ever voice my opinion. My opinion doesn't count. I just am here to follow orders.
Oh my. Okay. How old were your kids at that time?
They were probably maybe 2 and 4.
And how old were you?
35.
Okay.
Something that they do to watch out for is they isolate you.
Okay. So it's
because they want to be the only influence on you. No one else knows. Everyone else is a dumbass. Everyone is put down. They are the only one that knows.
Okay. So they're power hungry control freaks.
Yes.
It sounds
Yes.
so they want to control.
Yes.
He controlled your time and your money. So that's something to look out for.
Yes.
He never
Yes.
did any wrong. He
They will never admit they did anything wrong. And if something does go wrong, they blame you or anybody else.
okay. And
They
then,
never will apologize. They will never say they're sorry.
he never once said he was sorry.
No,
Okay.
never.
Okay.
Because in their mind, they do no wrong. They're always right.
Did he ever treat you kindly? Because I know narcissists have this thing called love bombing, right? Where did he ever do that? Or was that only in the beginning of the relationship?
In the beginning in the relationship, it was. But then later on, when he did something kind, I always felt like it wasn't really for me. It was to show other people.
That's what I want to talk about. So here's something I know because I had a friend years ago that was narcissist, and I learned a lot. They are really sociable, well-liked people in society. A lot of times, people have no idea what happens behind closed doors. Was this the case with your husband?
I would say it was a show.
Right.
It was for show. It's a charade. It looks good.
No one knows, though. It looks good because it is a performance. Like they go out.
And you think it's a perfect family.
Okay.
But really, it's someone who's controlling everything. And it's a shell game. It's a house of cards. There's no foundation. They will violate your boundaries. You have no boundaries. You cannot set boundaries because they will not respect any boundary you say. And I remember dating him, and he was moving me out of my apartment into another apartment, and he found my diary under my mattress and he read it and later quoted something out of it to see if I knew what he was talking about. And that was a major violation of my privacy, my most intimate thoughts,
Sure.
my most vulnerable thoughts. And he thought he had every right to it. And he was never vulnerable to me. I realized that they will make you feel less than so they can feel greater than. And your job is to make them feel greater.
And what happens if you don't? It's just that walking on eggshells tension?
It can become worse than that.
Okay.
It becomes worse where it gets to the point where they almost want to destroy you.
Would you call him hot and cold toward you, or was he just always just apathetic and distant? How would you describe how it feels when you're married to a narcissist, besides being controlled on all levels? Did you ever have warmth, or was it ever like, you're amazing? Did he ever do that? Or was it just always you felt like you were no good, unworthy, and just always continually trying to please him?
It was never, you are amazing. It was never, I'm so lucky I met you. It was never, you're beautiful. I think it was, if I ask, you look fine, you're fine. It was more of a conditional love. It wasn't unconditional.
Performance-based.
Performance-based. You realize it's not a reciprocal relationship.
Right.
And that's hard to think because you think, how could I have self-sacrificed? And I think being raised Catholic, you think you're supposed to self-sacrifice. There's actually a word called life-giving, that you think of your marriage or someone else first before your needs, so their life is better. I didn't learn that you need to take care of yourself first and not deplete yourself. And it's not selfish to do that. But there were times in my marriage when I would get so depressed or so depleted or so not knowing who I was anymore because I wasn't taking care of myself. I wasn't putting the oxygen mask on myself first.
Got it. At what point, because I'm going here and I know our listeners are going to be, so when did it hit you that you're with a narcissist? When did you realize what happened? What did he do? What's the big turning point in your marriage where you went, oh, this isn't good? What did he do that gave you the wake up call?
I think it's when, this is interesting because when he was withholding the money, the therapist said to me that she thought he was bipolar. And apparently bipolar and narcissists have similar characteristics and are often misdiagnosed. And also narcissists and alcoholics have very similar characteristics, different than bipolar and narcissist. But basically that it's very self-serving and they do no wrong. And when things started, and the same therapist said to me, my husband liked chaos. He didn't like calmness. He said he always did his best in chaos. And chaos creates uncertainty and not a clear picture and dissection. And you can do things and it's so much going on that no one really knows what the truth is. And the therapist said, you're lucky that that is going on in his company and he's not bringing it home. I think I realized when his company started suffering during the recession that he started bringing this chaos home, is how I can say how that it just started getting very turbulent and chaotic. And he was doing things that were affecting our home life and not telling me about it. He started not paying mortgages for 90 days and not telling me. And I'd find out by opening the front door and being served papers and being told my house is in foreclosure or another property was in foreclosure. And something the narcissist is very good at is what they call gaslighting, to make you feel like you're out of your mind, you're crazy. And I said, I can't believe you didn't tell me. And it's, well, what do you mean? I told you, you knew all along.
Oh,
and for a minute, you question yourself, like, did that really happen? Did he tell me? And it becomes you just don't listen. You never listen. You start questioning yourself. You don't trust yourself. They make you feel like you're out of your mind.
okay. And he stopped paying bills then.
He stopped paying bills.
For you, that sounds like it was the first sign for you to go, okay, something is really wrong. So
right.
What is the big thing? Because I know a little bit about this story, but you don't have to share the details unless you want to. He did something really huge that affected your credit. Is that right? Besides
yes.
mortgage, was that like your final straw, or was that when you were already leaving? Because
I think what happened was I kept forgiving. He didn't pay payroll taxes. The IRS came after me. He didn't protect me. He wanted me to pay off what he owed to the IRS out of my retirement account. And I was so angry. But I remember I was getting so angry and didn't know if I had a right to be angry. Is a wife supposed to do all these things and go against her own nature and put herself in harm's way and give up all of her security for someone that didn't protect her. And it became very clear that I was a tool that he could use to get out of a situation. And I think not feeling worthy enough that I was validated enough to have a feeling of being angry is when the light went off. Like, everyone has a right to their feelings. And if someone ever dismisses you or devalues how you feel when you tell them how you feel, that is a huge red flag.
Yes.
And I would say I didn't know that, but I would say things and it was, what is wrong with you? This is just life. Why are you so stressed? And they were big things. You know, my house was going to be taken away. And if it was taken away, it was my fault because I didn't, give up my retirement to pay his debt. It was like they create these horrible situations and huge messes with the deceiving, and you're supposed to clean it up. And if you can't clean it up, or you can't believe it's happening, or in my case, probably I was living out of fear, thinking I'm going to lose everything, plus my marriage, if I didn't do what I was supposed to do.
You've definitely given us a picture of why you would divorce this man. You were in counseling, which I want to just praise you and say, yes, I'm so glad you did that, because I'm sure you got to a point where you're like, am I going crazy here? Is this me? So if anyone out there is even questioning whether or not you're in a marriage with a narcissist, I would suggest getting into therapy, because you can't win with them. And Betsy is going to tell us a story now of how you moved into deciding to get divorced. What happened? How long did it take you? Did he fight you on it? Did he let you go? Because I know they hate to lose. So how did that all pan out? How did you get to the decision that you were going to end the marriage? And how did it work? How did you work through that with him?
I think what happened was I found my voice. I stood up for myself, and I didn't agree. And in a community property state, the IRS is not someone that you mess with. I realized he crossed a line that I couldn't do. I have a moral compass, and apparently when you don't pay payroll taxes, it crosses a line. And anyone trying to do the right thing or has ethics or integrity would not consider that as an option. Yeah. And the fact that he did it as an option, and apparently it's a felony, and for him to minimize it and say it's no big deal, and we're going to offer up your 401k to get out of it, I realized my best interest wasn't taken into consideration at all. And that's when I started to tell the truth. And I said to the IRS, this man has never shared a dime with me. We've never had a shared checking account, a shared savings account, a shared credit card. Why am I responsible for his debt when I wasn't benefiting from what he had? I've worked my entire life. And that, she said, can you prove it? And I proved it. And I realized it's the truth. You have to live in the truth and state your truth, and you have a voice. We're not meant to shrink down into less. We're supposed to blossom into more. And if ever you're feeling depressed or anxious and stuck and unhappy, you need to figure out why.
Yes.
And there's actually a book, and this goes back to my journalism, that's called Unstuck. And it talks about people will go, if they're depressed or have anxiety, and go and take a pill really you might need medication, but really it's telling you that something in your life isn't working and you need to change something in your life. And I was determined to get better and have well-being and happiness. And why am I not happy? What is going on? And I realized I needed mindfulness because I was in a fight or flight mode because I was so stressed out I couldn't turn it off.
You needed peace.
I needed peace.
Yeah.
And you need quiet.
Yeah.
And when you have someone else controlling your day, did you get this done? Why not? Did you get this done? And if you didn't, you would get this horrible feeling that you aren't worthy of much because what's wrong with you? You can't do one simple thing I ask you to do. So you feel like you're failing when you're not, but they make you feel less than.
Sure. How did what took you to the point of calling a divorce attorney? Do you remember that day?
Yes. I thought I possibly could change him, but you can't change a narcissist. And as they get older, it gets worse and worse. And I just knew that my soul was dying and was going to die unless I got out of this marriage.
Right.
And I learned when I said, can we just be financially, legally separated? And he said, no, we're just going to get a divorce. I knew that I was being used for the financial component of it.
Okay. So it wasn't, you were trying to figure out a way to save the marriage, and
Yes. He's the one that said, no, there's no difference. We're just going to get a divorce.
Okay.
So that is when I went and saw a divorce attorney. Narcissists don't get mad. You have to be very careful because they don't get mad. They get even. They are very vengeful. They will come back and they could harm you. There is no remorse. There is no reasoning with them. And all I can say is when he was finally gone, the peace came and the sinisterness and darkness left.
So divorced, free, you have
free. And it took about a year to clean up everything.
Okay.
I did clean it up. And I learned that there's good people out there, and all you have to do is tell the truth. People know now what narcissists are. They didn't know then, but they know now. And you have to be careful of people that will say, oh, I'm so sorry this happened to you. You have you gone to counseling, and act like they care. And then they can be another wolf in sheep's clothing.
Sure.
You're very, very vulnerable.
Yeah.
And I think the best thing is to figure out what the warning signs are and to trust your gut. And if something doesn't feel right, talk about it. Don't silence yourself just to get along.
Oh, okay.
You have a right
to stop you right here because these are gold mines. These, for the listeners, these are your keys. These are the takeaways. And maybe they're not what you wanted to share, but your gut knows. And
your gut knows.
I had a narcissist in my life in the past. And I will say, we didn't talk about this, and I am not, I don't have a degree in psychiatry or psychology, but I do know that a true pathological narcissism is a cluster B personality disorder with a true diagnosis. It has its own code. It's not somebody that looks in the mirror and thinks they're handsome. We're not talking about that. We're talking about a true personality disorder, right?
Yes.
That's the kind of narcissism this is. And your gut does does tell you, you get a gut check. And when you don't talk, there's something about this thing where you question yourself and you end up protecting their reputation. And you just made me realize when I was in this situation that happened where I was like, no, this is wrong what this person is doing. I'm questioning my own.
Yes.
Questioning myself. I don't say anything because I think,
yes. You think they are the master of making you not trust yourself.
Yes.
Because it's the gaslighting. It's the telling you just don't know.
Yes.
You're not that smart, or you're not. I didn't believe I was smart enough, and now I know I am. And people will say, we felt so sorry for you. We could see how controlling he was. And you don't, when you're in it, it's a slow process. But when you're rushing home because someone wants you home on time for no reason, and you get in trouble because you didn't get there in time, that's not right.
Red flag, red flag. You're an adult.
Yep.
And if you are 5 minutes late, so what?
You're here to live your life and to become the best version of who you're supposed to be.
I know.
And you want to surround yourself with people who support you, and it's reciprocal. And you both inspire each other to be the best version of yourself.
That's what it's supposed to be.
And that's the journey.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we have to go through devastating things and horrific things to figure out that is our purpose of being here. We all are worthy.
Yes.
You don't have to earn it. You're here. God created you. You're here. And just by being here, you're worthy.
Worthiness is a birthright. That's right.
Yes. And I think I thought I had to earn it and to please, to be loved.
So it sounds to me like, I know a little bit about you now, but you are in the same home, right? That the family you tried to destroy, and you are thriving. You're driving an amazing sports car. You have a fantastic job that you've been in for a long time, right? Through the marriage?
Yes. I've had my career for probably 30 years.
Same career.
And I took 5 years off, and I really think probably my faith got me through. I'm still here.
Yeah.
And I decided the one thing in the Bible, again, it's my faith, that they say more than love thy neighbor is be not afraid. That God is with you through all of this. And do not live your life in fear. And when you are fearless, you live. You don't just survive. You thrive. You aren't holding back. You're not cowering down. You are standing strong, and you can face the challenge.
I love that's a great way to end on this. Tell me a little bit before we close. How old are your kids? How are they doing? And how's your love life now?
I would say I've been divorced now for 5 years, and I had a 5-year plan. My 5-year plan, going back to not being afraid, I was convinced I couldn't afford this house. And someone said to me, you can afford that house. You've been paying for it for the last 8 years. And I thought, you're right, I can. And I did, and I reinvented and figured out a way to put an Airbnb in, and that's been successful. I've had 35 people come and stay, and I'm a 5-star host, and I've had people from all around the world. I traveled by myself and did the Camino de Santiago, and I thought when I went by myself. And everyone that I ran into that trail and met told me how brave and courageous I was. And I said, I'm not going to live in fear anymore.
Well, I just think that's a great place to end. I can tell our listeners, I know for a fact that you are definitely thriving, and Betsy has so much love to give, and she shares it openly with whoever wants to talk about her story with her. And the fact that you were willing to be as transparent as you were for this episode, I just want to thank you, because there's a lot of people that are probably listening that are in a marriage where they're going, is this narcissism or not? They have no idea. So you gave us some great takeaways. Look for the red flags. I'm sure there's a lot of patterns. Listen to your listen to your
And if you need to look on the red flags, you can Google narcissism now. There's a lot of people like you, Christine, bringing awareness to people out there.
Yeah.
And it is a cluster B type personality disorder. And it's actually on a spectrum.
Yeah.
You are a narcissist, and then it goes to sociopath and then psychopath.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a serious disorder. And before we say goodbye, is there any future in your mind, in the back of your mind, would you ever remarry again? Did he steal that from you, or are you hopeful that you will someday be remarried?
You know, it's funny that you ask that, because I didn't think I'd ever love again or trust again. And I have to tell you, I trust again, and I was open to love. You have to heal. You have to get your self-worth back. You have to think you're a high value person, which you are. Everybody is. Be that high value person so you attract the high value, high quality people into your life. The people that are not taking from you, but want to be in a reciprocal give and take relationship that make you feel good and you make them feel good. And it's authentic and real. And they're not trying to get something from you or use something from you for themselves.
So you're ready.
I'm ready. I got there. My therapist had said I was ready a long time ago. And I never thought that I could love again. But I must say, I think I'm definitely falling, or I'm very smitten. And I never thought I would say I'd want to get married again. But I've never had this feeling for a long time. Mm-hmm. It's a wonderful feeling. Well, and it's the way it should be. It's a healthy, good, healthy, reciprocal. We can take care of each other. One person isn't taking care of the other.
Hope lives. That's a great way to end.
Yes.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Christine. Thank you for having me.
Okay, I feel like I need to do a recap because that was a lot. And I don't know about you, but I was hungry for more information. But I would have had you here for 90 minutes listening to every little detail of her story. But let's recap what she said. The red flags are: the first thing is you lose your voice. You can't have an opinion. You don't get to speak. They isolate you from family and friends. They call you names. They will tell you you're not good enough. You're not pretty enough. You're not smart enough. You're just never enough. They control your time. They manipulate you to believe that you have to be everywhere when they say so. They control money, and they often want access to your money. Something she talked about, him wanting her to bail him out of his mess that he made, that is a normal pattern in narcissism. You can look that up online yourself. They usually have some story where they're a victim of some scenario, because they're always a victim, and they look for compassionate, empathetic, caring people that will give them the money to bail them out. Remember, they never say they're sorry. It is always someone else's fault. Also, they thrive in chaos. One thing that is a known fact about pathological narcissism is they're high functioning in stressful jobs. We're talking emergency rooms, Wall Street, politics, anything where they have to be quick-witted, quick thinking on their feet. They thrive. But they usually choose a partner who doesn't, because they know that if confusion is created, they will be quick on their feet, and their victim, their partner, won't have a clue of what's going on. If you're in a relationship where any of this is a pattern and life feels like a facade, my friend, I want you to talk to a counselor. Dig into that fearless that Elizabeth talked about. You can do it. You can't do this alone. Get some support. And in the meantime, have a fierce, fun, feminine, and fabulous day.